God through his eyes. That's 100% not true. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the NFL Matchup Show. I'm Eric Lindquist, going to be filling in for Lofty here today. He's got a family thing going on. We wish him the best. We love him. We miss him. But hit that like button, subscribe button, and notification bell as we get going. I'm excited because I get to spend, 90 minutes? This is a 90-minute show. I get to hang out with my dude, my brother in crime, half of the law firm, Matt Savoca. He's at Draftaholic on the Twitters. Go follow him there because I like smart things. He's a smart person. How you doing, my dude?
Well, that's a bold take. I think some people in chat might have other things to say, but I'm thrilled you're here, man.
Do.
We miss you, Laffy. Hope everything is going all right, and I appreciate you, man. I know it's early out there on the West Coast, but I know you're bringing the energy. I know everyone in chat is here, have their substances of choice. I don't know if you know about the little tradition that people have with the Thursday matchup show. All right, so we gotta fill you in here. It's okay.
In case you didn't know, I might have other things going on in my life sometimes here. Yeah, I might be working a little.
All right, maybe you can pitch to people what you're doing these days at some point. But we do have a little bit of we have some traditions to live up to here at the Marathon Matchup Show, and I'm happy to live up to them today. So we first of all have to get ready for the amount of time it takes. Right? It says on the show sheet 90 minutes. Laffy, you, me. A little bit verbose, possibly, even in the mornings, even before our coffee. A little verbosity has never hurt anyone. It's certainly never hurt us. So people tend to get their food and drink ready. As you have your coffee. I have my coffee. Some people get creative with it. Some people get more legal than others. And we get some of those in chat. So definitely let us know what's going on there with all your substances of choice. And then I have a few catchphrases, which tend to get counted on the screen by Tyler. We'll get into that soon enough.
That was, are people doing meth on this show?
It has come up. I don't know if it's happening. We have not portrayed that on camera. No.
Okay. Well, this is
Things
like
get weird on Thursday, man.
What was the name of the Breaking Bad sequel? This was it was
El Camino?
the Camaro. El Camino.
El Camino.
El Camino. There we go. El Camino. This is like El Prius, and we are ready to rock in a very much more moderate, eco-friendly kind of way this morning. Once again, hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. It goes a long way for us. We have a super chat right out of the bat, a $10 of loonies. I love seeing some loonies from Brian C., Eric, and Matt, bringing the knowledge and the fun. 2 exclamation marks. That's better than 1. Keep it up, guys. Love this show. Well, this is the first time I've never done this show. I'm very excited to do this show because I know I get to talk about every single game on an NFL slate. Matt, do you know how much NFL studying I had done before 5:30 a.m. this morning?
Excuse me. First of all, just let the people realize that you said 5:30 a.m. up here grinding.
Yeah.
My guess, based on your inflection, is 0.
0 is the answer.
I'm also going to guess that it's not going to sound like that once we get into this because I know your level of baseline knowledge about the NFL as you handle the crunch time of the summer sports and the beginning of the fall sports. It might be busy season for you, but we got a lot to talk about.
Again, I'm done complaining. I get to talk sports every single day. Life is pretty good. I would say there are a lot of things that I could be doing that are a lot worse. This is pretty tailor-made for me. MLB's winding down. That'll make life a lot easier to not have to do MLB video anymore. But the NBA one is beautiful. It's over on the Odd Shopper channel. Check out Lindy's Leans Likes Locks. I'm going to be on NBA Live before lock later in the day, I believe. Are you going to be on the Showdown show tonight then as well? No.
Oh, I'll be there. You better believe it.
And Lofty will be too. So again, if you guys want to give him your love, if you want to give him hugs, either through emoji form, hopefully not personally because that's creepy. Just give him your love in chat. That would be much appreciated. Let's get to it, shall we? Anything else that we need to be talking about on the front end? I'm sure this is the part where Lofty would go on some crazy diatribe about, I don't know, Philadelphia fans and how much they care about things over other people. You're on a bye. We don't care about you right now.
It would be like a food he ate. It would be like why his stomach is upset. So, some sort of icebreaker kind of story where you're just like, I don't even know how to respond to this.
Bro.
That's the Laffy we got. We gotta timestamp that. It's producer Ty.
Do you understand? When you eat the thing, it changes you. Yeah, I don't know why I
Had
made him
Alpha
hipster
Brain last night.
Yeah, it's fine. Oh man, this is not the Joe Rogan podcast. Tyler Xander, behind the virtual wall there, doing a great job, shaking his head, already nervous. That's where I
killed me. You almost killed me with how bad that impression was. It was so far off. It sounded like Laffy got hit with a skateboarder from California. Like, I don't know what that was, but never again.
Well, are you done? No, I'm just asking, are you done interrupting me as the host of this show, as the fill-in at 8 a.m. out here on the West Coast?
I'm just having a blast. Honestly,
right, how's Texas A&M doing this year?
On the show, usually just sitting back for a minute and listening. This is a joy.
Is Texas A&M having a good year? I forgot. First game, guys. We've got Cleveland. We've got Baltimore. Cleveland, 6.5-point road dogs, heading to Baltimore, 45.5 total. This is pretty clear cut for me. I don't ever think I want to get over the top with anything from the Cleveland passing game. You do get Amari Cooper there, who's pulling some ownership. He continues to be 6,100 over on DK. More of like lineup filler for me than anything else. But I think Cleveland begins and ends with a conversation around Nick Chubb, who kind of got his price blasted up on certain spots. I always find him to be a more appropriate FanDuel play, but now that price is completely nuked over there. And on DK, sitting at 8K when you have guys like McCaffrey and Eckler and Derrick Henry, who I definitely want to talk about quite a bit today. How are you looking at Cleveland on this 11-game slate?
So Baltimore's defense has trended towards improving. That's about as good as we can say. They're not a good defense right now, but they're approaching league average in pretty much all of the metrics I look at. Nick Chubb's price is inordinately high. Running back 5 on the slate right now. We have him running back 14 in terms of median projection. I think that might be a little bit low, but again, this is simulation based. This is historical stat based. And right now we've got him in the optimal lineup, just an incredibly low amount. Even though he's projected for just 3% ownership, he might end up with a negative leverage score. That surprises me. I think it might also be a pay up to be contrarian moment, right? This may be not the easiest way to predict DFS, but we know that Nick Chubb is good. We know that Nick Chubb has touchdown upside, and we've actually seen it before, which is more than we can say about a ton of the player pool every single main slate. The projections are going to say that this isn't a strong play compared to salary-based expectations, but if you want to go for it, to pay up to be contrarian, to go for that for a large field, less than 3% owned Nick Chubb, by all means, go for it. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of times this season where the risk has been worth the reward. On the road here in Baltimore against this rush defense, considering he's going to be really low owned there, 0.5% we currently have him projected for. He's not going to be there. He's going to be in like the 2-3, as you said, 3% I think sounds about appropriate. And you know you're running into last week, you get behind in that game script against New England. He played only 44% of the offensive snaps because, well, you don't want him to go out there and get hurt because he's going to go out and win you a lot of football games. His yards per carry, I mean, that's always the thing that it makes it so impressive is how efficient, how incredible he is. He's up to a career high 5.9 yards per attempt, which is just, he's so good at actual football.
Right? It's almost a hot take to not say he's the best runner in the league right now because Derrick Henry, unbelievable athlete, but he does it by just brute force and strength. And while Nick Chubb is an unbelievable athlete, like approaching the 95th to 100th percentile in all athletic metrics we care about, he still has a level of vision, of elusiveness that is just kind of unparalleled in the league right now. If you want to bet on a player like that in any sort of game environment, I'm fine. I understand that, especially when you have Lamar Jackson, you have just the ability for this game to shoot out. It's not the most likely outcome. It's not the most likely game environment, but I don't think you have to go to Amari Cooper, who's going to approach 10% ownership. I think people are going to see him as a popular run back option because of the salary.
All right. Anything from the passing game from Cleveland side? If you look at our top stacks tool, I mean, they're near the bottom as you would expect. In a game script, though, where Lamar Jackson goes completely batshit crazy on the ground, especially, we'll get to that side of the ball because Cleveland, notorious after last week, Ramondre Stevenson continued the trend of just running all over this Cleveland defense. But anything you could see from the Cleveland passing game? Because Njoku had been showing up in lineups. He always ends up a little bit more popular than what I think he should be on some of these slates, and I end up at different places. But now back down to 3.6%, 4,200. He's no longer in the 3Ks. Anything you like outside of Amari Cooper, which you might not even like?
Yeah, Cooper is fine. I don't understand why he's getting this much projected ownership. I guess, like we talked about, it's because of the popularity of a 6,100 run back option. You also have Kareem Hunt there, who we can kind of count as a passing game option, a 2-minute drill option, but we haven't seen him get the huge target share games right now. So we really need touchdown upside. He hasn't had a blow up game since week 1. Another player who you can explain how it happens, but you can't really say it's a high probability that the ceiling game for Hunt happens. So to me, Njoku is in the you can play him range. If you need to go off the wall, Donovan Peoples-Jones, we have just inside the top 50 wide receivers in terms of projections, but it's not really that exciting unless you're playing this game stack, because it does have some shootout potential because of the offense on the other side, really the quarterback on the other side.
Love it. So nobody told me. Again, I'm filling in as host. I know that the matchups, we're talking about matchups, and so I assume it's the 11 gamer. I assume that we're going down the line in that direction. You guys go by highest total to lowest total?
That's pretty much how we do it most weeks, unless it's like very, very jarring in terms of like afternoon and early. If we need to split them up, we do, but usually we go highest to lowest.
Something that could have been brought to my attention yesterday.
I'm sorry. We really, I'll put this on me. That's on me. Could have brought it on.
Good.
Brought it to you.
Somebody take the blame. Well, because Tyler's not going to, even though it's Tyler's fault. Producer Tyler, great job. Appreciate you again. Glad you could jump in on the hot mic and give me crap, but you couldn't put the order the way it's supposed to be. Just do the old math. Go ahead. We're going to Seattle and Chargers. So we're going to flip the board here at the end of this game. Just remember, when we get to the Cleveland and Baltimore section, I guess we can do like a 2-minute recap. That didn't hurt anybody, but it should be a pretty simple one, because we jump over to the Baltimore side of this one, and Rashad Bateman practiced. Yay, limit participant on Wednesday. I don't know if that means anything yet coming off of this foot sprain that he had in week 4, but it's at least a positive. I know that Jordan Vanek had put out a couple of numbers about Lamar Jackson on Twitter, one of our former colleagues here, doing great work all the time in the NFL streets. But he had put out some numbers about how much better and more efficient Lamar Jackson is against the blitz when you get Rashad Bateman. It's almost like having better wide receivers on the field is a good thing for the quarterback. Imagine that, Matt Savoca. How are you looking at Lamar Jackson on today's, or on Sunday's slate?
Yeah, he can't do everything, right?
Right.
Kind of tasked with that, and he's often successful, which is the crazy thing about Lamar Jackson. We know what the ceiling is for him. The ceiling is higher with a player like Rashad Bateman. I honestly don't hate the Deshaun Jackson signing. Like, it makes sense. Just take the top off the defense. Just make them have to deal with someone running a 9 route. If you want somebody to run those wind sprint routes, you could do worse than 35-year-old Deshaun Jackson. Is he going to be fantasy relevant? Is he going to be DFS relevant? No, but I do actually think it makes sense from an offensive perspective. Bateman is the one where his presence matters a ton here. We don't have him very high in our projections. Compared to salary-based expectations, he doesn't look like a strong play. But in expected fantasy points, his 10 expected fantasy points is among the top 35 receivers on the slate, certainly in the you can play him range. And then you talk about that ceiling potential, that ability to change the way that the Baltimore offense looks, change the dynamic of that team, especially with the way Cleveland has played defensively. One player could absolutely go off in the skill positions, and they may not have J.K. Dobbins, whose knee tightened up on him at the end of the game last week.
Yeah, what are you thinking about Kenyon Drake? Because Mike Davis only 8% of the snaps. Kenyon Drake over 50% in that spot. Performed pretty admirably. I would say that was one of the bigger surprises to me, that I know that they got Zamir White in Las Vegas, but I mean, Josh Jacobs played in the Hall of Fame game. Twitter lost its damn mind. Kenyon Drake gets released, though, and nobody wanted to get back to Josh Jacobs. People are going to talk about Josh Jacobs this week. We're going to talk about Josh Jacobs this week. But Kenyon Drake, 10 rushes, 119 yards on the ground. Now, do I expect 11.9 yards per carry this time around? Absolutely not. But is he in play at 5,100 for you?
He is in play. He's not a must play.
Definitely.
runners who play with Lamar Jackson tend to actually see increased efficiency, because just think about this logically. You don't even have to get stats fed to you. When Lamar Jackson shows an option play, a lot of linemen are going to move towards Jackson just naturally. They're going to be told, they're going to be coached to move towards Jackson and stop him from breaking off a big play. That leaves holes open for just league average running backs. In fact, I was having this conversation with a colleague offline, and I was saying that I think that the running back position is a position they should never invest super heavily on in Baltimore while Lamar Jackson is in his prime. Day 2 running back, that falls down their draft board a little bit, absolutely. But beyond that, this is a position where just a league average player who gets a majority of the touches can succeed, especially against Cleveland, who's one of the worst defenses against running backs this year.
Jeremy Heisen, Deshaun Jackson is dust in exclamation marks, as if we didn't know that.
Probably.
More than likely, that's not the hot take. That is the actual consensus at this point. Is there going to be a game he probably catches a 90-yarder and we all quit? Like we all just stop life at that point? Sure, that could definitely happen. But James Prochet in it, I'll tell you that much.
Right. The Ravens have been known to do this, take a why not shot on
Andy Isabella's there right now.
Yeah. Des Bryant was there for like 2 seasons, just quietly, not like playing 3 snaps. It's a veteran locker room that they try to bring in veteran presence in, but we're still talking about Mark Andrews, right? This is a player who is tight end 1 in our projections. 14% ownership projection right now. I don't think that's too high in expected fantasy points. He and Kelsey are jockeying for number 1. Right now, his 19 expected fantasy points would look good for any position, let alone tight end. I honestly think this is just a great play. All you need at his $7.5K price range, which is pretty pricey, is a 22 point game. But you actually have that in his expected fantasy points. You're up at 19, 20 points. So his opportunity value matches the 3x that you would need to feel really good about him in a tournament. I think he's a great play. I'll be at least with the field, most likely over.
Browns, highest owned defense currently in our projections, under 2,500. I can't imagine I get to very much of that.
No, I don't like starting, especially with the way that Jackson and his running back, again, I just went on that diatribe, can rack up yards. It rarely is a good defense to play unless they, of course, get the fluky turnover.
Anything else from this game for you before we make our way back to the top and we go to Seattle and Chargers to get this day really going?
Duvernay is in play in the you can play him range at 4.5K just because of the game environment. He's in the player pool.
But I don't want to, Matt. I don't want to.
That's how you get different, right? Everyone says Andrews looks like the most obvious thing. We say, okay, Duvernay today. That's how football goes.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. He's wide receiver 1. It's whatever. Rashad Bateman, please play for the love of God. Then I don't have to do anything here other than Mark Andrews, of course. Let's go to this Seattle and Chargers game, which for me, I am lamenting the man that is Keenan Allen, who never plays football anymore for this Chargers team, but whatever. If anybody wants to go buy my Rainmakers cards of him, they're basically free now online. So enjoy that discount dandy sale. Elindy 4, look it up. But Seattle +6 at LA here, 51.5. LA against Denver. Denver serviceable defense there in prime time. Not serviceable with Russell Wilson. Holy mother of God. But Seattle, first time that they didn't have a game that completely got nuked on last week's slate in week 6. I don't know if that's going to be the same thing come around this time, because the Chargers, you give them a decent matchup, and I'm just waiting for the explosion. I am waiting for the Justin Herbert eruption spot here. But we start with Geno Smith, who going into week 6 had led the NFL. Yes, led the NFL in QBR. Matt, why are we living in the upside down?
It's not what I expected from Geno Smith, right? I didn't even know if he was going to start come opening day, and now this guy is getting there as a pure passer because he's not rushing that much. He's not rushing nearly league average. Our projections have him way ahead of salary-based expectations. I don't know what else to tell you guys. And his ownership's not that high. It's right now at 9%, which is high for a quarterback, but you can differentiate your lineup easily on a main slate here. And like you said, the Chargers team on the other side hopefully getting Keenan Allen back, having Mike Williams, having Austin Eckler, having enough playmakers to make this a shootout potential game environment, even with this being a high total game to begin with. I am going to get to Geno Smith. I'm going to get to plenty of Geno Smith. And especially with the fact that you have 2 known pass catchers and then just a bunch of million maker, dart throw kind of plays. It's fun because I know exactly who to stack them up with. And these consolidated offenses can be very helpful. Try to help us get a few things right with just one kind of pick with one stack.
Yeah, it's very clear cut. Tyler Lockett has this eternal cap of 6K where DraftKings is just so against him going to 6K, despite the target share, despite being the quote unquote number one here for Geno Smith so far this season. DK Metcalf in a fantastic spot. Both of them are going to be pulling quite a bit of ownership. We've seen that salary now drop from 6,800 to 6,600 for DK Metcalf. Makes the stack a lot easier to go to put together. If you don't get Keenan Allen, which we're going to be waiting all the way up until lock 4, I just get that feeling this week. Like, this is the first week I think we're going to be on full Keenan Allen will he play watch, which is unfortunate for me, but looking at the other side, Mike Williams would be such an easy run back. Gerald Everett pretty involved in that offense as well at a tight end position that if you don't play Mark Andrews, there you go. That's your path there. Travis Kelce, there's your path, is probably getting to this high total game. But we got to talk Lockett and Metcalf. Do you have a preference between the two? Because I feel like it's flipping a coin every week.
It absolutely is flipping a coin. I still think that DK Metcalf is the type of player worth betting on. It's just tough to at wide receiver 10. What you're really saying is it's worth moving up a few hundred in salary to play a player who is projected in a median place below expectations, but has the ceiling to catch 250-yard bombs. And Tyler Lockett does have a history of disappearing for several weeks in a row. It has been much more clear-cut this year with Geno Smith than it has even with Russell Wilson in the past. And honestly, some of these deep balls that Geno Smith thrown, I was like, is this vintage Russ?
That Tyler Lockett touchdown in New Orleans between 4 defenders was one of the dumber throws I've ever seen. This is not Geno Smith. I've seen Geno Smith.
I'm happy for the guy.
Me too. I mean, especially now watching what a douche lord Russell Wilson is. What an absolute douche lord. Is that an appropriate thing to say? I think it's appropriate when it's Russell
honestly
Wilson.
Think that's the technical term for someone who acts like he does.
Yeah, for lack of a better phrase, douche lord.
Mm-hmm. And thank you as we bring oh, it's too dangerous. Too dangerous.
Spicy. Ooh, too dangerous.
King Pill. I didn't see that we had a super chat from you guys.
I got you.
Oh, nice. We got a super chat.
My first time listening live this season, hearing you guys at 1x versus 2x has me feeling like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Good stuff, boys. With that emoji, though. I don't know. That's the best one I've got. Exactly, Mike Lawrence. Exactly. That's how I feel. I don't know. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with me right now, are they? I don't think they are.
I think this is the pretty basic thing. So the whole mentality thing and your alter ego completely falls apart when you're not producing and not winning. No one would be making fun of him if he was winning and producing. That's the bottom line.
It's kind of
true. Football is a pure production sport. They would be like, oh, look at the way this guy psychologically prepares himself. He puts himself in the zone. We would explain this away. That's one of, if you guys know the Anti-Fragile Black Swan author, Nassim Nicholas Taleb. It's we are excellent post-op explainers. That's what humans are great at doing. Taking a story and weaving it around something random that happened. This is bad with Russell Wilson. I digress. It's good for Lockett and Metcalf. And honestly, you've got sprint runners, Marquise Goodwin out there. You got Noah Fant and Will Dissly. So if you think there is shootout potential because of Herbert possibly having that blow-up game, then you also have large field tournament options. We also got to talk about Kenneth Walker, who is 5,800, looks fantastic compared to salary-based expectations, and should honestly be chalky. It looks like a quarter of the field is going to consider playing Walker.
I mean, you just went on a Black Swan dissertation. I mean, tell me you went to NYU without telling me you went to NYU. There it was, y'all. Wow. Let's do a breakdown of Dostoevsky. I can't even say his name. Dostoevsky. Is that Why is my brain incapable of
saying
No,
I think, you said it right. I couldn't do
cool.
it. I don't know.
We're going to Kenneth Walker here, and this fool from Michigan State, wow, looked good. 21 rushes, 97, and a tutty. No passing game involvement, though. Now 5,800. Yeah, it's the highest total game here on the board, and that's where it really comes down to is there's no other guy who has like the clear-cut range here. We've seen some guys get nuked up. We've got guys like A.J. Dillon who are in a complete timeshare, Brian Robinson Jr. against Green Bay here in kind of a game that Green Bay needs to win. If it isn't Travis Etienne down there, I don't really know what else I want to be getting to cheaper that is like any kind of a priority than Kenneth Walker. So like 5,800 is your built-in guy that I don't want to say cash or anything, but he's 23% owned. Pretty hefty ownership here.
Yep.
If the slate started today, I think I would have to find ways to trim that, get away from it, especially because I refuse to be fading Josh Jacobs against Houston. But how do you feel about Kenneth Walker in this spot?
Yeah, you hit it perfectly. We got a lot of games to hit, so I don't need to go and re-explain what you just explained well, because honestly, Walker is a fade outside of cash games for me right now. And expected fantasy points per game, obviously, this is going to look at the a 6-game sample for all players, but still, we're talking about a player who I think would be lucky to approach the 14, 15 expected fantasy points value for him. And while that means he has a relatively decent ceiling potential in this game environment, I think attaching yourself to a presumed running back one in a good game environment isn't enough for me to just say, that's why I need to follow the field here in large field tournaments.
Yeah, quiet little shout out for Noah Fant, who has a pulse again, 7 targets, 6 catches for 45. He's kind of been trending up in the targets, 7 and 5 the last 2 weeks, coming off of 1. We're going for 1 for 2 yards and a touchdown. That still didn't do a damn thing for you, but becoming a little bit more involved. He's 3,100. He stands out as a guy in a great game environment that you can punt with. You're always trying to hit a touchdown with one of those guys, but we go to the Chargers side where GC Samurai had said earlier, if got Russ on the brain, if Justin Herbert can't do it here against Seattle, if he can't finally nuke one of these slates, he's just not going to. And I kind of agree with it. I mean, Justin Herbert is so talented. Shout out, quack, quack. Love you, Oregon. But Keenan Allen, I would love to see him back because I have financial interest in it. But also, he's just damn good. And you look at the top stacks tool coming into this week, and 2 of the top 4 on this entire slate are the Chargers and Seattle, both sides of this game. It's not going to go underlooked by any means, but is 9%, 8% Herbert, you still want to get something, you want to get some involvement with come Sunday.
So Justin Herbert is one of those players who I feel like we're unfairly judging. If any of you are a matchup show OG, started listening during the pandemic season in 2020, I talked about the Atlanta Falcons week after week and just saying, guys, we cannot talk about Matt Ryan without talking about Julio Jones. And while people don't realize, because the stats aren't mind-bendingly high, how good Keenan Allen is, he is an all-pro receiver who absolutely transforms offenses. And as good as Eckler is, and as decent as Mike Williams has become, honestly, continuing to play better than I expected after a few dud seasons to begin his career, Justin Herbert is hampered. He's playing with one hand behind his back without Keenan Allen. I'm hoping he gets that back here, especially with the way Seattle's played defensively. Spoiler alert, not well. In series success rate, the ability for opposing offenses to turn a series of first, second, or third down into another first down or touchdown. Seattle's worst in the league right now. So it's here. It's here on a silver platter, especially if you get Allen back. But I get it, people. One of the things I like to hear in chat is that people are done with him or possibly done, because that means for a good player especially, it might be just the right time to play him. 8.9% expected ownership. Happy to go there. Happy to stack him up with any of the big 3, including the running back Eckler.
Yeah, it's such a tough thing to get a gauge for what's going to happen because they do get a bye week 8. We have to be thinking about buys to a certain extent. Not really, though. I mean, we're going to know if Keenan Allen is playing football or not come, 11:30, noon come Sunday, my time, 3 p.m. Eastern time for all you people who live in a real place. So that's cool. Check that out. But whatever. If he's not there, maybe I get a little bit of Palmer in my life, but I become less enthusiastic about the upside for Justin Herbert. That's for sure. Somebody I'm pretty enthusiastic about their upside is Austin Eckler. Guy is 16 targets in week 6. That can't, I mean, what in the world?
That's how it goes, right? Eckler is an incredible receiving back. And honestly, the way he pushed the pile into the end zone, he's clearly one of the strongest backs pound for pound in the league. He's a great player. He's a running back in a high total game as well. I would much rather find a way to be above the field on 8.3K Austin Eckler this week than 23% owned Kenneth Walker, because I know that the opportunity value is there. I know that whatever the game script is, Austin Eckler is going to be involved. I don't know if Kenneth Walker gets involved, if this becomes a full-fledged shootout. And honestly, we saw some injuries in the backfield that actually solidifies Austin Eckler's role. Sony Michel is going to be involved. Kelly probably not going to play. And so suddenly this is a two-headed backfield where it had been 3. I honestly want to go here a ton. Austin Eckler is one of my favorite plays at the running back position. I know we've got value options. You mentioned one of my favorites, but in this game environment, man, especially with the way the wide receiver is going, Eckler is a great play. I'm
so with you. Play Eckler, going lower on Kenneth Walker. A lot can change between now and Sunday. It's going to be very ownership dependent. I'm going to be using the boom bust tool to give me exactly what I need to know in terms of leverage, and then we'll move along our merry way. Shout out Gerald Everett. He's got a cool visor. I always enjoy that. 7 targets. Once again, just trending in the right direction. He's just looked pretty good in this offense overall. I think he had a couple of spots where it could have really gone off for him even last week. Kind of glad it didn't, because at 4K, I think his ownership will stay a little bit intact. And therefore, we can kind of make him the easier double, because it hasn't been a great experience, this Josh Palmer experience.
It has not, but I honestly just like them in terms of a DFS player pool, high total game. We know we're getting opportunity from Justin Herbert. And like you said, Gerald Everett at 4K would have been my favorite when comparing to salary-based expectations. Palmer and even DeAndre Carter in the you can play them range when you look at their salaries.
Yeah, I'm starting to get the feeling that when you do this matchup shows, you spend a lot of time on the first 4 or 5 games, and then you're going to spend very little time at the end of the show. It's going to be like, oh, cool. The Jets and Denver are playing football.
Right, exactly. The idea being, if you had one show at the Stokastic DFS channel to watch or listen to, and you had to get ready for Sunday, the idea that this would be that one place to go, and then you just listen to us, Deeper Dive Live Before Lock, and you're essentially ready to go. We got a lot more strategy, obviously, on the channel, but that was the idea behind this whole thing.
Absolutely love it. We've got Little Man in the chat as well. Nick Lepre, make sure you're checking out the fantasy football channel here with Stokastic. It's Notorious Fantasy, presented by Stokastic, I do believe, if I say so myself. And then also just, you're doing great work all over the channel here, the Best Ball channel. I mean, everywhere you can find Matt Savoca, you want to be listening to him. So be checking him out. Check him out over on, Odd Shopper, everywhere, absolutely everywhere. But one thing you guys need to do right now is check out this promotion we have going for, yes, the NBA. The NBA is back. It's a beautiful time of the year. And we have a promotion going, Hardwood. All caps, one word. I'm not going to make a joke out of it. Hardwood. $10 for 10 days of Stokastic Platinum. I just love this deal because it gives you everything we have behind the paywall. We get NBA, NHL, PGA, which big golf tournament going on here this week. It's kind of great to have the CJ Cup going. Massive field. Hopefully you guys were able to get that. We're going to have showdown data for that as well. And of course, the NFL you know and love. Check out everything. $10. Just $10 gets you 10 days of Stokastic Platinum. That is as good as it gets. Plus, you will get access to a lineup generator. I know Fantasy Cruncher isn't involved with this, so that is what it is. But we have a lineup generator going. It's going to allow you to build and export 20 lineups for the NFL using our data. Those are going to be randomly assigned. You're going to get an opportunity to be able to download those. So I know a lot of you guys like to build some lineups when you're doing your business, sitting down. You know what I mean? You'll be able to have the opportunity to build lineups in real time with that generator. You can cross-reference and put them into the old DK or FanDuel machine. You'll be all set to go. So promo code Hardwood, that gets it done for you. $10 for 10 days of Stokastic Platinum. Looking forward to you guys checking that out now. We move our way. down the board to a game I'm excited for because it is the one return of Dacus. I don't know. Dak's not short for anything, is it?
Dacus Prescottus. It's like
I was trying to think
like a Roman senator name.
Yeah, that was Senator Latin,
Prescottus.
If anything. Yeah, there it was.
I was with you. Gladiator 4. Okay.
Oh, you would NYU. You absolutely would. My guy. Dude, just showing off the brain early in the morning. That sounded weird. But we're going to go to.
It's short for Dakota. It's short for Dakota.
It is. He is Dakota.
I like that.
Yeah,
I love
cool.
that. I mean, I'm from South Dakota, the Southern Dakota, the better Dakota.
Sorry. That's hilarious.
That's amazing. I like Jeremy's funny. He's enjoyed this. He also liked Douche Lord earlier, so I appreciate when people like my jokes. But Dak Prescott returns. But we start with the Detroit side because starting with the road team just kind of makes sense. Detroit coming off a bye. They have nuked so many slates this season. They have the perfect combination of horrendous defense plus some really solid skill position players. And there's one guy that needed a bye very, very badly. And I think that was Amon-Ra St. Brown, who did not look the same out there against New England. They got completely blanked. However, this is a dome environment. Mm-hmm. I like this for the Detroit side of the football. Maybe we get a little bit lower on Jared Goff, who's been a surprising quarterback so far this season.
QB1 upside too, right? That's really why we're talking about
Weird
Jared
that
Goff.
You said that and I didn't flinch.
He literally has QB1 upside because of exactly what you said. The perfect fantasy combination of horrible defense and offense with playmakers who can break slates wide open. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god, being the main one there. DeAndre Swift also needed the bye week, and he's got a decent salary at $6,800 as well. Honestly, these are such good spots, and the Dallas defense, while good, isn't stay away good to me. And we've now seen some footage where the Dallas defense has been stymied. They've always been a little turnover heavy. And, honestly, I'm not even that scared if they have a turnover or two on Detroit. I still think this becomes a game environment where both teams need to push the tempo and the passing. You can play pretty much any of these main skill position players. And if you are in a large field tournament, I don't hate Josh Reynolds. I don't hate Jamal Williams either. These aren't players that I'm gravitating towards and say you have to play them. But outside of Swift, Amon-Ra, the only player, I'm going to sound like Gajeski here, I think TJ Hawkinson's salary is way too high.
Oh, no. I can we even talk about him anymore after the live before lock debacle?
I mean, he literally went on one of the biggest diatribes he's ever been on, and the guy goes off for the best performance of his entire career.
Of the entire NFL season.
It was amazing.
By the way. It was highest fantasy performance of any player all season long.
It's okay. Matt runs hot all the time, especially, oh my gosh, in those NCAA streets. So
it's a joke.
I think we can let one go. But we're
having fun with him. Maybe I could redeem myself with a Matt Gajewski impression a little bit later, but right now we're I'm trying to keep this as business not business casual, the opposite. I'm trying to keep this strictly business here for the time being, because I know I'm going to get off the effing reservation.
Well, now we know Laffy's not here if we're keeping things strictly business.
Yeah,
I don't even know what that would mean.
Josh Reynolds has looked pretty good, but I do get worried if DJ Chark gets back into the mix. But we're talking 2 of the last 3 games. Josh Reynolds accumulated double-digit targets over 90 yards in both of those. Just a box score you would not expect coming from his side of the football. I will say that much. So with Jameson Williams continuing to be out, a rookie, I'm very much looking forward to seeing at the NFL level. DJ Chark, if he ends up being out, Josh Reynolds, you could probably put along for the double. But yeah, as you said, I don't want to be playing Hawkinson. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you stack up Jared Goff without him, you probably need to be put in the insane asylum.
It's football. It could go wrong.
No, it couldn't.
No, okay, it couldn't.
Impossible.
Expected fantasy points. Remember, it's just opportunity value in a scale we understand. Fantasy points. The number 3 wide receiver in per game expected fantasy points, Amon-Ra St. Brown, is being fed when he's on the field.
All right, we go to the Cowboys side, which is very fun. Something tells me Dak Prescott, because people haven't seen him in a while, just are going to click on his name and play him more than they maybe should. Maybe that's just a weird feeling that I get, where it's like the shiny new toy in town. We haven't seen him in a while. We know that kind of upside that's there, and everybody has upside playing Detroit in a football game. So there's that. They're 6th in our top stacks tool currently, behind two of the teams we already talked about there, and a couple teams we'll get to a little bit later. But 7.3% top stack percentage. You get a number 1 in CeeDee Lamb. You get, I think, the best version of Dalton Schultz we'll probably get in a long time. Hopefully. He had that knee tweak. He ended up sitting out, which, could have screwed a lot of people over with that primetime game against Philly, but hopefully you were able to make things happen. I like a lot from the Dallas side of the football outside of the running game. How do you feel about Dallas coming into this week?
Dallas is in a great spot. We all know the usual suspects, especially in the passing game. So excited that we're going to be able to play Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb together finally on a main slate, but so is the rest of the field. CeeDee Lamb looks especially good compared to salary-based expectations. Michael Gallup is one I'm interested in as well. Our projections aren't super hot on him. I think I'm seeing some trends here, especially in terms of expected fantasy points, target share, snap share, route percentage share, all moving in the right direction. I know you're saying Dalton Schultz may be at the healthiest we've seen him in a while. I still think that we can basically rule out a hyper-efficient season for Dalton Schultz with a tweaked knee, as bad as it is. He has to get there on volume, or he has to be a pure touchdown tight end, which is what we say about every single tight end who's not Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews. So he doesn't excite me as much. Honestly, I'm looking at these tertiary options like Gallup and Brown as really, really good plays in this game environment where not only do we expect offense, but Detroit's defense is, of the 4 units, each team's offense, each team's defense, Detroit's defense is the worst of that quartet.
All right, we move ourselves over to, or we don't have anything else to talk about here. We don't want to play Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard in the timeshare.
They look kind of good in our tools.
No.
I know. I feel in my gut the same exact way as you. The stats don't look good. The expected fantasy points don't look good. The projection to compared to salary-based expectations look good. I don't know what else to say.
No. We don't hate money. We like money.
I like money.
Yeah, so we don't play timeshare running backs that are Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. Right?
Pollard is the one who I'm pretty darn sure he's good at football, and he could break runs. He just does not get the touches.
Oh, but Ezekiel Elliott looked good last week, Matt. I do not care.
Yeah, he's not recapturing it. Maybe, there could be a spike week here or there. It's DFS. I get it. This is a good game environment. I've said it 3 times now. Zeke is on the table. He doesn't look good. It doesn't look good.
Okay, we'll move on then. We'll move on. We're done here. Very excited to move on to the next game here. Kansas City, San Francisco. Hello. It was a complete dud. Yes, complete dud. The Kansas City and Buffalo shootout. It was pathetic. It was not a good football game. Stephon Diggs was awesome. Juju Smith-Schuster, I don't want to even talk about ever again. And MVS has now sent me to a van down by the river where I will live out my days. But Patrick Mahomes is going to be around what? 5% on this slate? Yeah. If the slate started today, I have no idea how I wouldn't play a sub 5% Patrick Mahomes through the moon on an 11-game slate. I'm very nervous, Matt, because I understand San Francisco, but I was willing to roll out Marcus Mariota in bulk. Yeah, you heard me on Live Before Lock talking Marcus Mariota. Looked pretty good, and then it didn't because apparently
you were talking about Burrow, too, who ended up being in the opposite.
Oh, yeah, no, Joe Burrow was my favorite. So he was my highest-owned quarterback, and Marcus Mariota was my second. No offense. Kind of okay at this sometimes. Yeah, kind of nailed it. Made some money. Yay. But then MVS also ruined my soul. I would have so much Patrick Mahomes coming into this week. How do you feel about him on the road against San Francisco? A little bit freakier than trying to target San Francisco in a dome in Atlanta.
So we have to think about the San Francisco defense as it is right now, right? Because if you look at overall metrics, they look fantastic. In some of the metrics I look at, adjusted fantasy points allowed against total offenses, they're some of the best numbers in the league. But if you just filter it by last week when they were missing tons of key players, and it is especially in the secondary where they've got injuries that are not going to be able to be made up for anytime soon, they were 11th worst in the NFL just last week in Football Outsiders total DVOA. I think there is some sneaky, scary upside for Patrick Mahomes and his passing options. you know it's Kelsey. But outside of him, I think you can go back to Juju. I actually think Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a decent play. I think this San Francisco defense, if you look at all 6 weeks of the season, they look fantastic. But if you narrow it down to the last few weeks, you can start to see the holes, start to see the cracks.
Oh, my God. PFS second best offense here overall. That being the Kansas City. Well, fourth now. Fourth, there you go. Overall power rank second. Just looking without Nick Bosa out on the field, I got to think that it's going to be a really positive situation for Kansas City, even on the road here. I mean, if Bosa doesn't suit up, it's such
Bosa
a good
playing
spot.
matters a ton in this matchup.
That was my main thing about last week was you don't have Nick Bosa out there and you give any quarterback time to go. This Abukum guy on the other side, Samson Abukum, he's good. He's been pretty solid his entire career for the most part, but he is no Nick Bosa. Like Nick Bosa is players that matter, put him in that category.
Yeah, I mean, this is why there's a Pro Bowl. This is why there are all pro players. You don't just replace them. You replace their job, but those players are how you base your entire operations as a defensive or offensive unit, like we were talking about with Keenan Allen as well.
I tell you what, I don't want to. I'm not going to talk about MVS this week. I'm just not going to talk about him. I'm still going to play him because I hate myself, but I'm not going to talk about him. I refuse to talk about a 6'4" gazelle who's 220 pounds, runs a sub 4.4, and should be able to just break defenses down from the inside out, but yet doesn't. So we're going to not do that this week.
Look, all of them, including even Sky Moore on a very, very low probability basis, can get there. They all can with Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback. None of them absolutely stand out from a median projection or an expected fantasy point standpoint if you just look at the last 4 weeks of play. Happy to see Juju come alive. I think it was like the first touchdown he's had in like 18 regular season games or something. It was ridiculous. And we know that the king of the target share, by far, Travis Kelce, just a one-of-a-kind player in that same conversation with Bosa as absolutely changing the way offenses and defenses play that offense. Travis Kelce is still just crazy good to watch.
Let's jump over to the San Francisco side of the ball where I want to start with Jeff Wilson. 1.2 fantasy points, 1.5 fantasy points, depending on your scoring format. Last week, 1 target, 25 yards, 7 carries, got benched. Tyrion Davis-Price isn't active, more than likely. Kyle Juszczyk. They had Tevin Coleman play snaps. What is going on here? Why is Jeff... I don't understand that. Plus, Deebo Samuel has only had 2 rushing attempts the last 3 weeks, which is wild to me. No semblance of a running game yet. Part of me looks at a 5,800 Jeff Wilson and knows the kind of upside that a Shanahan offense can have here running the football. How do you feel about him as a contrarian sub 5% option for DraftKings.com this week?
Definitely in the contrarian option pool, definitely in my player pool, but Eric, we're getting Shanahan. That's what's happening. We're getting Shanahan. They run it with whoever they want to run it with that the defense doesn't expect you to run it with. So Deebo will be back in the fray, but this running game varies week to week, and believe me, if you give up a fumble Ruski as bad as Jeff Wilson did, you're going to get benched in this offense. And that's really what happened. I also think, this is weird to say, that the process for getting to Jeff Wilson against a decrepit Atlanta team last week is good process. Yeah. Especially with a team that likes to run the ball and plays at a slower pace of play like Jimmy Garoppolo's San Francisco 49ers do. I think what we hope for in this game is that Mahomes gets out to a fast start, forcing Jimmy G and the Niners into a more modern, more pass-heavy game approach. But that still means we can get there with Jeff Wilson dump-off passes. I actually see Notorious in the chat. What's up, man? Good morning. Good show this morning as well. And I think Tevin Coleman, revenge game narrative, 0.5% ownership. I actually don't hate it.
You can't have revenge if you have to hold a cane in order to play football.
Tevin looks kind of good. Tevin looks okay.
No.
It's the only offense he's ever really succeeded in. And he did it as a pass catcher.
Him and Shanahan. I can't quit you. A lot of that going on. Deebo Samuel, once again, he's now a wide receiver again. Pretty insane. We're seeing 7, 9, 10 targets trending that direction here alongside Jimmy Garoppolo. There were concerns I had where it's like, do I ever want to stack Deebo Samuel with anyone ever? Because so much of his upside was basically playing glorified running back at a wide receiver position. So that's cool. Brandon Ayuk, though, that was the dude who nuked the slate last week. He's sub 5% now next to Deebo. I don't know how I feel about a Jimmy Garoppolo double. It just doesn't feel like a whole lot of fun. I feel like you kind of have to do it if you're going to be going his direction and then run it back with like a Kelsey or I mean, pretty much just Kelsey, maybe Juju or MVS if you're really feeling spicy. But Deebo, Brandon Ayuk, how do you feel about the wide receiver core here in San Francisco?
I feel good about it. I feel good about the fact that we now have seen Ayuk kind of play up to his talent level, which we feel like we've only seen.
Well, he was the one who got Shanahan. He got Shanahan.
Got put in the doghouse for sure, for sure. Which is interesting because if you remember 2 seasons ago, he immediately made an impact his rookie season.
Oh, he was incredible out of Arizona State. Dude was just
leaping over people and just making some highlight reel plays immediately. Ultimately, this just lifts the ceiling of a San Francisco offense that needs help getting to a ceiling. So really, if you are doing 2 San Francisco players in your lineup, you got to run it back. You're essentially saying that, like we said, Kansas City brought the San Francisco offense along in a very, very pass-heavy game environment. And then we got to include George Kittle in the mix there. His salary is still pretty darn high for a tight end, $5,300, but we have a projection right there, right at salary-based expectations. The expected fantasy points aren't incredible. He's been used as a blocker way too much, if you want fantasy points, that is. But ultimately, he's a good player on an offense that, once again, should probably be forced to pass much more than it wants to.
Anything else from this game for you? I think you did a pretty darn good job. I will say, maybe a shot on San Francisco defense. That might be, 6% ownership. They are pretty owned, but 2,700 for a defense that definitely can play and scheme to their opponent pretty darn well, pretty effective. They blitz when they want to blitz. They hadn't blitzed forever, and then they come out and just throw the absolute kitchen sink there. Carolina, 6 sacks in that one. How do you feel about them as a D?
I absolutely love that call, especially because of the way that the public feels about Patrick Mahomes. Everyone is shocked when Patrick Mahomes fails. It's just kind of the way he's kind of been a golden boy since he got into the league in that way.
Guys, hit that like button for my guy, Matt Savoca, for myself, if you're really feeling so antiquated. I got up early. I put in the work. I'm trying the best I can. Tyler Zander's doing okay himself, too. Thank you for organizing the run sheet. It looks so beautiful the way that it's done here. We're 4 games down. We got a little ways to go. We'll talk about No House Advantage, our sponsor, here in a second. Make sure you check out them. Make sure you use promo code Stokastic when you sign up. Get yourself $50 first match deposit bonus. Those are all really, really good things. The NBA's back. Thursday Night Football's over there. Very excited to talk about them. But we continue to Hotlanta and Cincinnati, and the matchup of the 2 quarterbacks, my 2 highest owned quarterbacks from last week. And felt good, felt sharp. And then the afternoon happened and MVS happened. Nothing like 44% of MVS to really, really take the top off of an unbelievable week otherwise.
It's about what happens when it goes right, Eric? Right? That's what we tell ourselves as we cry into our DraftKings account.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should just exclusively play Rainmakers. That's a bad idea. But Marcus Mariota, 5,500 for him. Kyle Pitts, hey, he had a pulse. It was good to see him. Touchdown catch. There were a lot of quotes going on this week, too, where they interviewed Marcus Mariota. I pay a lot of attention to this guy, if you couldn't tell. But Marcus Mariota had a lot of quotes talking about Kyle Pitts, where he's like, I need to get him the football more. I understand that there are times that he can beat any individual matchup, and I should be getting him the football more. He has Drake London, who's pulling around 10% right now at 5,400, which is just a really good price for a wide receiver I strongly believe in. You don't really have to dance and tango with this running game whatsoever. I like Marcus Mariota for a second straight week. I don't think I'm going to get him at 0.2% like I got last week against San Francisco. But against the Cincinnati defense, I am not worried about at all in a game that I think does shoot out. The over of this one of my favorite bets on the board early on this week. How do you feel about Marcus Mariota?
Is it Mariota or Mariota? That's
Harry Potter.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I've been waiting all week for that mediocre joke.
Tyler Sanders like, fair.
Golf clap. I'm glad you brought that. I'm glad you brought up that comment from Mariota, because this is a rare situation where I absolutely believe that signal. Not in the sense that Kyle Pitts is suddenly going to be the tight end one, for the rest of eternity, but I do think that is a clear directive from the coach that the quarterback agrees with on film, where it's just, you don't say something like that unless it's obvious. It's a better offense when it's a Kyle Pitts run offense, not a Mariota run offense. And while Drake London is good and he has some really solid metrics to start off his rookie season, I think ultimately they just haven't used Pitts to his full potential. And the one thing that is working is the rushing game from the quarterback position. And that's going to make expected fantasy points look pretty decent. He has expected fantasy points and a median projection ahead of his salary-based expectations. And Cincinnati's defense, not spectacularly good. They're right around league average in the metrics I'm looking at.
They're not good. They're adamantly not good. I'm with you.
There are some weeks where they pop and look like a strong defense, and then they just go right back to, are they actually terrible? So it's been kind of tough in the metrics just looking at it on a week-by-week basis.
Yeah, you play the Saints, you're going to look pretty decent right now.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about that. Kyle Pitts, though, at the tight end position, I do understand. I didn't talk about Kittle, I guess, in that San Francisco game. And you're looking at the tight end position. We get one of those weeks again where all of those top end guys, you get Mark Andrews, you get Travis Kelce up there as a contrarian option at 8K, and he will be contrarian because 8K is a lot to be paying at the tight end position. George Kittle shows up at 5,300, and I get it there. But Kyle Pitts, he's pulling 9.3% ownership. That is the third most amongst the tight end position. I think I'm just fine with it. Another week in, Dulcich getting 20, just so much attention. I can't even with that. We'll get there. But Kyle Pitts, 4,300. Give me all that you got in a bag of potato chips. I am in this week. How about you?
Yes, sir. 4,300 is not too much. And his ownership isn't that high. Like, it's high for the tight end position. But what we see in ownership for quarterback and tight end on most main slates, what I call the great flattening. What's the real difference between 9.8% projected ownership and 8.4% projected ownership? That's going to vary within the contest we play anyway. There's no functional difference at all. So it's kind of unfair to say he's high owned because he's tight end one in ownership. It doesn't really matter that much once you get there. I believe he's tight end 3 right now in projected ownership at the moment. But all of this to say is the ceiling potential is there. The quarterback's potential is there. I'm not double stacking this team. And my obvious first choice for a single stack would be none other than Kyle Pitts. London's in the you can play him range, doesn't have a great projection compared to salary-based expectations either.
He kind of it's a very strange thing with Drake London because he ends up really, really popular on some slates now. Again, new shiny toy. People like playing the rookies that perform really, really well. We've seen that with Garrett Wilson a couple times this season. We've seen that just throughout the entire board. And I get it. I really like Drake London. I loved him in college football DFS with USC. He made terrible quarterbacks look incredible there. If they had him there for sure this season alongside that offense, Caleb Williams at quarterback, it would be unfair. It would be absolutely unfair. But Drake London, he just ends up having more ownership than what the projection should dictate. And that just makes it so easy for me to get away from him now.
Easy as that, right?
Yeah.
You can play him. That's why he's in that range. You have to do other things with your lineup to get contrarian. And look, 30-point potential is there. But compared to other wide receivers, compared to other people in his salary range, 5,400, there are just others I'd prefer over him today.
All right. Well, now we go to the chalk. I'm going to call them the chalk. Again, it's so nice to be a week early on these kind of things that it would be really hard for me to imagine a world where I would play Joe Burrow at this kind of ownership if this was like New Orleans of last week. He was 4%. I got all the Jamar Chase and all the land. My highest owned wide receiver had around 55% of him last week. Could not have loved him more with Lattimore out. You get this Atlanta secondary that is not imposing whatsoever. And now Joe Burrow Go easy on that seagull, boy. A little bit of that. That was my coach, by the way. Tyler liked that one. See, I'm back in his good graces now.
Hey, Coach, hey, go easy on that seagull, boy.
I got an 8. I'll take it. How you feeling about Joe Burrow going into this week?
What is going on? That was awesome.
Hi, I'm not Lofty. There you are.
The Bengals are in a great spot. They're all appropriate. All their salaries are appropriate, which is annoying because I can't say any of them are fantastic values compared to their salary-based expectations, but every single one of them is a go. Not all in the same lineup, obviously, but Mixon looks fine. In expected fantasy points, he's still number 1 among all running backs in expected fantasy points per game. -6 fantasy points below expectations. Show me something, Mixon. And obviously, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins can get there against this bad Atlanta defense. Just the way Jamar Chase gets to his ceiling games are so swaggy. Like, sure, it's one thing to have like, 100, $150, 2 touchdowns, but to just be like high stepping in, just no one else on the screen, but you just waltzing into the end zone. What does that even feel like in the NFL? Anyway, he's an excellent player. We know the up and down nature of the way that he's produced this year. We know that he could get to a 40-point performance in 2 straight weeks as well.
Now we get to the wide receiver spot where a lot of people had apprehension about T. Higgins last week, and I had apprehension about him. I pretty much didn't play him. And I think the thing that kept me from banking anything last week, other than MVS's dirty self, was the fact that I doubled everything with Joe Burrow, because I feel like when it's that pass heavy, he doesn't really bring you anything with his legs. You really are inclined to double him. Jamar Chase had one of those games where you didn't need to, and you just wanted to have the single of the two. But I want to bring somebody along for the ride more than likely here. And Joe Mixon does make a lot of sense. As much as he's had issues, 72% of the offensive snaps there, he's got the backfield still. He's one of the better guys in terms of volume that you're going to be looking at in the NFL. And 32 targets through the first 6 weeks, 38 for T. Higgins. I know he was limited in half of a game, but that's still a pretty good target share going to Mixon. My concern is that both of these wide receivers end up very, very popular, especially all the bros who love to pay attention to cornerback matchups, because AJ Terrell, he is banged up, some kind of a thigh injury. You have Casey Hayward. He's going to be out for a long time. He's their second best corner there on the Atlanta side. Oh boy, it is open hunting season there for these Cincinnati Bengals, isn't it?
It is. I feel like we've actually gotten a little bit better as just a media industry of getting away from those wide receiver cornerback obsessions that we had for a few
Unless
years.
It's Marshawn Lattimore, and if he's out, you should just jam people against him.
That's probably true. There are a few that matter is probably the real answer, but who needs nuance in today's social media world?
No. or tempered expectations. Those are absurd.
T. Higgins, when healthy, really heavily utilized on this team. 10 targets in week 6, 9 targets in week 4, 7 targets week 3, 10 targets week 2. Those are wide receiver 1 type usage numbers on most teams. He just happens to play with a super duper star like Jamar Chase. He's always a good pick for me, especially when he kind of has that natural cap on his salary, because how high in salary can, Jamar Chase go? It can't be higher than Chase's, obviously. So T. Higgins at wide receiver 11, 6,400 on DraftKings. Absolutely not too high here. Again, Atlanta, one of the worst defenses in the NFL so far this year.
Second best, the top stack score in Stokastic's ratings right now. They're going to be popular. They should be popular. I expect them to be popular. Is there any kind of an interesting way you might want to stack them up? How does Hayden Hurst sound to you this week?
Absolutely fine if you want to get contrarian. I think you have to be honest with yourself about 30-point potential, about slate breaking potential for anyone outside of Mixon, Chase, and Higgins. But it could happen. Touchdown upside is there. 9.3 expected fantasy points per game is a top 10 tight end usage value. And Tyler Boyd, is okay. He's just one of those players who it feels like he has less ceiling than he really does. But honestly, because of the offense he's attached to, he's pretty interesting for me at under 3% ownership, wide receiver 25 in salary. I actually think that's a decent secondary piece if you're attaching him to one of those key 3 players.
Anything else that you want to look at from this game, defense, otherwise?
Let me see. Certainly not the Falcons defense. Maybe a few shots at the Bengals defense. You could see things going catastrophically wrong at the Atlanta side.
Yeah, 3,600. Again, you want to try to find the pick sixes. You want to try to find some of that. If Atlanta's in come from behind mode, that's never been a good mode for them. That's for sure. A lot better playing ahead. We saw that last week, and that's just kind of their MO. Marcus Mariota, only 14 pass attempts last week and still found himself to a ceiling game. That was useful. But do it again, young man. Do it again. As we move on to the next game, or before we move on to the next game, hit that like button once again. We are on pace for a Lofty show. I just wanted to point that out. Chris Karen, our lovely producer, he was telling us coming into it, Eric, you don't have to go the full 100 minutes. You don't have to do... We're probably going to go the full 100 minutes. There we go, baby. We're absolutely doing it. Midway through, let's hit that like button, and we go to No House Advantage, our sponsor of this lovely show of ours that I'm fortunate enough to fill in on here today. We've got so many great offerings for you guys here at Stokastic to make your experience in No House Advantage a lot easier and more profitable. For one, we have free projections for it. Yes, you guys can go up and you can get exact lineups for No House Advantage, and you can fire them directly on the site. And that is not just in the NFL now for Thursday Night Football for the showdown that is certainly going to have overlay at No House Advantage, but the NBA is back too. There's a 2-game slate tonight, locking at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Massive games on tap for it here. We got the Milwaukee Bucks and the Philadelphia 76ers in the early session, and then the Battle of LA out here in my homeland. Lakers Clippers, going to be very, very exciting to watch that one too. If you guys want to get in on the action at the best place and the best bang for your buck, that is No House Advantage. We're playing player props over there. So you're taking more or less on confidence spots. When you're playing these showdowns, you basically are looking at 7 being your top. So for the Thursday Night Football, you're going 7 points, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, so on and so forth. You simply take more or less on the selected props that they have, and you're able to win money. If you finish up with the most points, you're going to have a share of that top spot. 10K to first right now for the Thursday Night Football showing. And once again, overlay is the name of the game. And No House Advantage has more of it than anywhere else you will find in the entire DFS industry, guaranteed. No doubt about it. So if you want to be playing for some serious money, 10K to first, 15K to first, 20K to first, a better place than DraftKings and FanDuel.com is certainly No House Advantage, coming in for the NBA Slam Dunk 10K to first and Thursday Night Football Showdown 10K to first here for New Orleans and Arizona tonight. So much content coming up on the Stokastic channel to help you guys out with that. No House Advantage, thank you so much to them for their sponsorship of all of our shows here. I know they'll be back along for the ride for the NFL Showdown live before lock. That'll be Dave Lochran, your boy Lofty, back in the house for the evening session. Neil Orfield and my friend over there, Matt Savoca. Check out that show later. And thank you to No House Advantage. We go to Houston, Vegas, baby. Excited for this one. And I think that this has the sneaky shootout of the week type potential. We've got Davis Mills. Nothing as good as that. Helming at the helm for the Houston Texans. It's not been a very good experience for him so far this season. He had a couple of decent performances that gave us a little glimmer of hope. Us best ball folk thinking, maybe he can be serviceable. Narrator, he has not been serviceable this year, Matt Savoca.
He's not. This is a game that I only am interested in from the Raiders' perspective. And if you want to attach a run back because DFS fundamentals are something we stress here at Stokastic.com, that's fine. These are pieces that, okay, Dameon Pierce is probably a good player. That's Brandon what we'll Cooks. Say. But people really like Dameon Pierce. People are learning Dameon Pierce's name very quickly. He does have a projection ahead of salary-based expectations. Cooks, I just don't see the ceiling like I have in previous years. Could it happen against a bad Raiders defense? Sure, especially with the way that the Vegas offense has played at times. It could happen. I think we've talked a lot about other wide receivers who I think have a higher probability of just blowing the slate wide open.
Dameon Pierce is good at football, I think. That's a plus. I also believe Brandon Cooks, 42 targets on the season. We're going to find a game from him eventually. He's pretty good. I'm kind of worried because Nico Collins has had more air yards here now over the course of the last few weeks. And that is concerning to me because Nico Collins, I do not find particularly good at the old football. We're going to have to wait. He's got a Q tag. He was a limited participant in practice here on Wednesday. We'll see if he ends up suiting up here. But if you get him and Chris Moore that somehow missed this game, I don't know how it isn't just Brandon Cooks and Dameon Pierce. There's really nothing else that exists there. I wouldn't want to play like a Dorsett or I think it's Tyler Johnson, the Minnesota Golden Gopher.
Oh, yes.
Tyler Johnson is sitting there waiting in the wings. If one of those guys miss that game, I don't think I could pull the trigger on a 3K of him. But anything else to talk about there? I guess Houston, they did release what's his face, Pharaoh Brown, who's now with the Cleveland Browns, OJ Howard, Brevin Jordan. None of these guys are very fun. This is just a bad football team.
I hate to be so reductionist about an entire group of people trying to play football.
Tell me you went to NYU. Once again, we need more of it.
But ultimately, I saw the same trend lines you were seeing where the air yard share is shifting. That's not good. And then we're also seeing situations where the routes run numbers are down for Brandon Cooks. 35 in week 2, 31 week 3, 34 week 4, 22 week 5. I don't know. He has not had more than 7 targets in a game since week 2. I realize Chad is talking about some of the underlying metrics looking decent. I'm seeing a player who is barely top 20 in target share this year, outside the top 30 in air yard share. This is not the same kind of like 12, 13 target player, certainly week to week. It looks like the ceiling is there. It's just going to happen one every 6 games instead of one every 3 like last year.
I'll put on the tinfoil hat. I think he gets traded.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Age 29, he just turned 29, still productive, still could be productive for a contender. That makes a lot of sense.
He bounced around quite a bit for a young player early on in his career. Obviously made a name for himself with some upside games in LA.
New England too.
New England. He's a good football player. Brandon Cooks is a very good football player, but I'm pretty sure Houston has no service for him, and maybe they're just kind of limiting some of his work. Still, why not show him off against Vegas in this secondary if you're going to show him off? So I will have some going into this week. I do get worried he's going to be a primary a primary run back in that game. So I might be going to more Dameon Pierce as a result, because the running back, the chalk of all chalk this week, is Josh Jacobs. And it should be. I think this is kind of a broken price tag. $6,500 for the lone back. Zamir White is not alive. Like, this is very, very strange that they would use that kind of draft capital on Zamir White, limit him. He was so good at Georgia, and Josh Jacobs has just been that guy. Massive games in week 4, massive game in week 5. How do you feel about a chalk Josh Jacobs? Because I am unwilling to fade him against Houston.
This is good chalk. This is good chalk. This is how you identify it, right? Bad defense in adjusted fantasy points allowed. Again, just schedule adjusting the fantasy points allowed against the running back position. Houston is 27th specifically against running backs. They're getting gashed. The opportunity is there. Josh Jacobs, among all running backs, your Austin Eckler's, your Christian McCaffrey, say what you will about him not really having the pass catching upside in the past. It's kind of different this year. He's 6th overall in expected fantasy points. Looks great on this slate. And I get it. The ownership is going to be incredibly high. It's going to matter what contest you're playing in. It's going to matter how you play Josh Jacobs in your lineups. But honestly, we have him at running back 1 in our current run of projections. That may change by the time we get to Sunday, but compared to RB11 salary-based expectations, Josh Jacobs looks like he's going to have no problem hitting that.
Yeah, it's him and Eckler. I'm going to be hitching my wagon to them. And then Derrick Henry, which we haven't talked about yet. Those are going to be I can already see my builds starting to come together here. It's like a dartboard every single week for me, where everything kind of gets narrowed into focus and you start aiming on that triple 20. Yeah, it's not the bullseye, everybody. Triple 20 is better. I always hate that analogy.
What? Well, actually, you could get triple 20s. That kind of analysis.
Oh, 180. That's the amazing dart call. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, just put in 180 dart call. It's so good. It's so good. Darts, who would have thought that got brought up? Must be 9:15 a.m. my time, and I must be delirious. Adams.
You're doing great.
Devontae Adams, you're doing great, sweetie. Devontae Adams, he doesn't get the greatest matchup here in Texas. What's his face? Derek Stingley's very good at football on the Houston side, but I'm still going to have some Devontae Adams in my life. I don't know how you don't. Derek Carr just out there chucking it as well. I have no problem having Josh Jacobs, Adams, and Carr in lineups together. Josh Jacobs had just give you all the upside. Give me all the touchdowns from the Vegas side. I do think this game, hopefully it can stay close here too. Darren Waller gets weird at 5,400. I think that's kind of a misprice, a little bit too high for my blood, but especially with Hunter Renfrow back in the mix. But how do you feel about Devontae Adams as a massive upside wide receiver option, most expensive wide receiver on the board?
Yeah, that's the only issue, right? Is what do I have to do with the rest of my lineup when I choose to play Devontae Adams? Who am I fading when I play Devontae Adams? He looks great. Looks great compared to salary-based expectations. His expected fantasy points, number 1 in the NFL. That's exactly what you do. When you trade for Devontae Adams, you give him the highest opportunity value of any wide receiver in the NFL. And what do you think about just getting Adams, getting Jacobs, and then one of Renfrow or Waller, and just trying to capitalize on a huge amount of the expected production for Vegas against this bad Houston team? I'm not even sure I need Derek Carr necessarily as part of these game stacks. I agree with you. Waller's price is too high, but it's not unplayably high. We can still make 5,400 work. And because people are viewing it the same way as you, seeing that salary is just a little bit too high, his ownership is going to be nothing. He's still playing that same bad Houston defense that Adams and Jacobs are.
I would rather play TJ Hawkinson.
Whoa. Okay. I mean, that's bold. I get it. It hasn't looked good. I mean, Darren Waller has had his moments, though. If you just look at the last 5 weeks, I mean, it's basically the whole season. Expected fantasy points is 4th among tight ends. 3.3 fantasy points below expectation per game. That's 30th among tight ends. I get it. I get why you'd fade him. Same game environment, good player.
Yeah, I guess fade isn't the right thing because, I mean, if you play 4%, you're double the field. You know, it's like, that's wild to think about. He's had upside games in the past. It's been so long. I love his story. I love him as a human being who kind of just revamped himself, and I'm cheering for him all the time. I just don't know if I can roster him in my DFS lineups this week. That's what it comes down to.
Makes all the sense to me. And you even got Matt Collins available as a large field option as well. But this just looks like not a great team, a team in a great situation that honestly needs some wins in a tough division.
All right, y'all, hit that like button. I don't know what in the world is going on. I definitely need you guys to smash that like button. We're under 100. That's inappropriate. I know Lofty's going to come after me with a I don't know what he'd do.
A pitchfork or something?
With an American flag and just
certainly
like
would be American flag.
It would be an American flag. He would chase me down with that, and I'm not a patriot. He would be upset with me. So I need you guys to get me back in Lofty's good graces. Smash the like button's face in, unless you already hit it, in which case you've done your duty. You can move on into the night. You can move on. Let's do this. It's like 9:19 a.m. We're just going to keep talking. Let's go to the game that I'm very excited to talk about. I've said that on a number of games here, but the Baltimore one I had highlighted. We talked about that one already. Mark Andrews and pivots we have at the tight end position. Well, how about a pivot at the running back position? We have Indiana facing Tennessee, and you get 2 of them. I do think Jonathan Taylor suits up this week against Tennessee. Seemed like he was on the fringe last week. They're probably very, very happy that they held him out, winning that ridiculous, atrocious, no good, very bad football game against Denver, and then finding a way to win against terrible, no good, very bad Jacksonville team because Deion Jackson is apparently very good at football too. But just you get Jonathan Taylor on the road here going up against Derrick Henry on the other side, and I'm just in love with both of these running backs for tournaments. I do think Derrick Henry will be the higher owned between the 2 of them for me because I do think he will by Sunday. If we get news that Jonathan Taylor is going to play, I think he'll get more popular than what we have, the 6.7. You could basically flip their ownerships right now. I think that'd be about appropriate. But how do you feel about Jonathan Taylor, assuming he suits up And even across, I mean, Nyheim Hines is going to play. He was in concussion protocol. He was a full participant yesterday. Deion Jackson is going to be limited. It sounds like he ended up getting dinged up. He died for the people so that the Colts could live. How do you feel about Jonathan Taylor this week?
He's an excellent player who should be used like Deion Jackson. You know, that's exactly what I expected to be saying in talking about DFS in 2022. Please use Jonathan Taylor like you used Deion Jackson, because Deion Jackson was getting used in the passing game, little dump offs, little screen passes between the tackles.
You just have to be the only running back left. You just have to be the only running back left, apparently. When they don't have any choice but to have him there, they just give him all the work. It's like, well, thanks for that.
Yeah, appreciate you. Well,
didn't do anything to his contract.
Yeah, it looked great for fantasy football as well, and it would look great for Jonathan Taylor's fantasy scoring. Amazing what he could do with that kind of usage. And let's not pretend the expected fantasy points are bad, right? He's 8th among running backs in expected fantasy points. We just had really, really high hopes for him. He's still a hyper efficient running back with the ball in his hands. You need 25 fantasy points for you to feel really good about him in a tournament. That absolutely can happen against a Tennessee defense that has been so-so, but they're actually 8th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs. That's, you know, pretty tough for defenses. I'm not going to tell you not to play Jonathan Taylor, but he's not someone I'm completely enamored with. It's just a great talent that I'm excited to see back on the field.
Matt Ryan, I don't know what to say. What in the world?
Hey, this is the only antidote to running, which we've talked about a bunch on this show for quarterbacks already. If you're going to throw 58, 59 times, sometimes it's going to work out. That's just the bottom line.
Shocking.
50% of the time, Matt Ryan has suited up for the Colts. He's hit 350 passing yards. That hasn't looked pretty, hasn't necessarily resulted in the most, world beater offense. They're 3-2-1 right now, right in the thick of things in a mediocre division. But he passes a whole lot, and he's playing a defense that is 26th against the quarterback position in fantasy points allowed. I've seen crazier things happen this year.
Paris Campbell has been on the field a lot, over 90% of the time now the last 2 weeks. Michael Pittman Jr. out there a lot. He should be. He's very good at football. 16 targets last week. That was nice to see. What a beautiful, beautiful performance by him. Alec Pierce, young wide receiver. I get a little worried that because those are 3 decent wide receivers. Yes, I'm going to call Paris Campbell decent. Okay. I understand that doesn't seem like it should be true. I think he's a pretty decent little wide receiver. There's no way that Matt Ryan, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're not going to play him at DFS. He's sub 4K though. How do you feel about Michael Pittman at 7,400? Because I do expect for him to be lower owned, especially if the running backs end up both being active in this game.
I really like Pittman. 30th in the NFL. That's where Tennessee is against specifically the wide receiver position when you schedule adjust their fantasy points allowed this year. It's not the only metric I look at, but that is a red flag for me when you talk about the Tennessee defense. And Michael Pittman is number 4 in expected fantasy points among all wide receivers on this slate. So the target should be there. The air yard should be there. The salary is decent. The projection is slightly below salary-based expectation. Certainly in the you can play him range still, but Pittman is a good, not great play if you just look at the projection. I see a lot of upside here, to be honest.
And I do not want to play any of these tight ends anymore. Mo Alley-Cox. I do think Kylan Grayson's actually a pretty decent pass-catching tight end, but he'll never get utilized as such. Jelani Woods, I would rather go into the woods and off myself. Like, I just can't play anything from the Indiana side.
Yeah, and of course, like, now that we said that, Mo Alley-Cox is the one that's going to have, 3 touchdowns on two passes. One's going to doink off a lineman, and he's not even going to get a target. And that's how DFS is won in 2022. But ultimately, yes, when you're just comparing projections to expectations, none of these players in the tight end position look good. I'd much rather take a chance on sub 4% Alec Pierce or sub 3% Paris Campbell, like you were talking about.
We got all of my friends here in chat. This is lovely. Love seeing you all hit that like button. We go to Derrick Henry, who I can already tell you is going to make or break my week. I get that feeling. Coming off of a bye week, coming off of a touchdown, at least one touchdown every week since week 2. He is back to doing Derrick Henry things and whatever. Maybe he came in a little out of shape. he's probably deserved that at this point in time because he's been the premier workhorse back for years and years and years now for the Tennessee Titans. After that week 1 against the Giants, and the Giants have proven to be a pretty formidable group, that defensive group, especially now that Thibodeau's playing really good football on the other side there too. We'll get to that one next. Derrick Henry is going to be a massive part of my builds here. I do think he's going to come in under 10%. I do think coming off of a bye, they're going to just let him run amok. And against this Colts defense that is giving up 21st most yards in football, or they're 21st against the run, 121 rushing yards a game, I'm going to call Derrick Henry for over 175 yards rushing. How do you feel about that?
Oh, boy. Bold. I love it. Football Outsiders doesn't necessarily agree, but
Football Outsiders could shove. No, I was kidding. I love you.
6th in Football Outsiders rush DVOA, the Colts are right now. 9th in yards allowed per carry. That can be a variable stat. It does look like the way to beat the Colts right now has been the pass a little bit more, but this is Derrick Henry we're talking about. I'm not going to say that any player other than maybe Jonathan Taylor on the other side has just the pure talent profile to get 150 yards. Nick Chubb has something to say about that as well.
Yeah, he's good.
But it's not crazy. I think it's a little improbable in schedule adjusted fantasy points.
Yeah, but I don't come into the show to be improbable. I come in to be impressive. Matt Savoca, you can clip this.
You're going to clip it.
I wanted to say 200 because it's a nice round number, but I kind of chickened out a little bit. 175 and a tutty. There you go. 175 and a tutty. That's a pretty good. That's a hefty number.
I love it. And we're talking in chat. I see it. You guys are on it today, man, because he is being used in the passing game a little bit more often. He's not running a lot of routes, but he's the utilized option on those routes, which usually indicates swing plays, screen plays, little variations on the running game that Derrick Henry can be just as effective as he is when he gets the ball between the tackles. 6th in expected fantasy points. As I was saying, Indy is 17th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs. That is certainly in the they don't scare us at all range. Derrick Henry is all systems go at running back 3 in salary.
I could understand why Derrick Henry is more involved in the passing game because the other guys are Robert Woods, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and Kyle Phillips, which no, thank you.
They have a collective ownership, the 3 of those players, under 10% ownership. So if you want to get contrarian, just play one of them. You were basically saying, especially if you don't play Henry, you're basically saying that they came out with an alternative game script. I would be stacking them with Tannehill at that point. Talk about low probability. This wide receiver core producing a slate breaker, that red fire emoji that you absolutely had in order to win a whole lot of money on Sunday, it's just so low. The true boom potential for this stack in the passing game, you don't want to say is 0, but Woods looks like an okay value piece at 5,500, but other than that, I don't think you need to spend a whole lot of time here.
We go to the Giants in Jacksonville. We got 4 to go. We're going to fly through these ones, though. 15 minutes left. Giants, Saquon Barkley. The Saquon Barkleys, we'll call them that. Going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 42 implied or 42 total, not implied. Just that's what it is. We've got Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones at the helm, but it's Saquon Barkley. I enjoyed their offense more with him playing Wildcat while Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor were banged up on the sideline. I very much enjoyed it, and it's because he's very good at football. I pretty much drafted him in every second round because I didn't know what else to do other than to take a guy that, if he's healthy, is probably your premier back in football.
He's so good. And here's what's great is when you compare his fantasy points scored to the expectation, he's not just absolutely destroying expectation, which means he could probably keep up this level of production.
There's a ceiling there still. Like the ceiling hasn't even been reached yet.
Exactly. And Jacksonville's defense has been good for the most part this year, but they're slipping, particularly against the running back position. Not great when Saquon Barkley's walking into town. There are ways that this can go wrong, and the bottom line is I just don't think 15% ownership is enough for a player who has a couple hundred salary discount from the other premier backs because the matchup in quotes is bad. It's not bad. It's average at best, and it could be better than we think. You certainly don't need this receiving corps. Slayton, Richie James, Marcus Johnson. I'll vomit instead. Maybe you can take a large field shot on Wan'Dale Robinson if you want.
Yeah, no.
Even Daniel Jones, I'll be with the field, and that means 4% ownership. If just one lineup, if I'm playing something like 20.
Yeah, you take that touchdown off the board for Wan'Dale Robinson, 4 for 3 catches and 37 yards. He's going to be the quote unquote number 1 for this team. That doesn't really mean a whole heck of a lot to me. Daniel Bellinger at 3,400 is a serviceable tight end punt. Yeah. Seems like at the goal line, he ends up being a guy that gets targeted quite a bit. He's had now 2 touchdowns on the season. You could say that about a lot of tight ends coming off of the edge at the goal line, though, too. So he's just a dude who goes into that. Jacksonville on the other side probably demands the most attention here. Trevor Lawrence, 5,700. He's sub 6K. That's still going to be appealing. You get Travis Etienne, who's kind of taken over that backfield now the last couple of weeks. James Robinson's starting to get mixed in. He did see 10 and 12 carries now, but getting no passing game involvement, that seems to be strictly Etienne. So I think the upside is definitely larger for him. He continues to be cheaper than James Robinson for God knows what reason, because nobody at DraftKings.com wants to do any work. How are you feeling about Jacksonville in this offense on Sunday?
I feel like Travis Etienne is the player that I would project personally higher than James Robinson with the way that the trends are going at the moment. I'm seeing what you're seeing in terms of the rushes and the targets. Travis Etienne is a player who is going to break out. I know the touchdowns literally have not been there. 0 is a bad number for touchdowns, but they will be there. JaMychal Hasty running in that 75-yard 3rd and 1 run is just so tilting for those of us who hoping that's a Travis Etienne, but it'll get there, guys. Projection compared to salary-based expectation, even with our concern that we're not even pumping him up enough, is still really good. Robinson is one I'm staying away from. Christian Kirk has enough upside here where I'm definitely going to be with the field at 6 to 10% ownership there. And Zay Jones is a player who, in expected fantasy points, he comes out looking really, really good. Like top 10 among all wide receivers on the slate. I'm not saying I'm ranking him there, but certainly better than wide receiver 43, 4,400. I think he could easily outpace those expectations there.
Anything else from this game for you?
I like those players I just mentioned more if Marvin Jones sits again.
Correct.
It just muddies the field a little bit. Evan Ingram, revenge game? Oh, gosh. It's what you're hoping for with every 3,300 tight end. Please fall down in the end zone with the ball in your hands.
I mean,
I actually like the Giants defense too, as we're talking about.
There you go. That's a good call. That's a good call.
Giants defense, 2,900.
I like that. I like Jacksonville's defense generally, but I don't know if I feel very good about them. They've been very popular in the last couple of slates, and they've hurt my heart. So I'm upset. But either way, Giants don't throw the ball enough for me. I do want to just be targeting more passing attacks when trying to achieve some of those upsides from a defense, because you're looking for the pick six at this point in time. And that's going to be the path to it, or just scoop and score season. More dropbacks are good.
And
more
crazy
dropbacks
enough, we
are
can't
good.
predict it. Bummer.
It's so hard. I know. Fun stuff. We can predict, though, Green Bay needs to win a football game. That's something they need. Going into Washington, the Commanders, Snyder needs to go away. But we've got Aaron Rodgers here. This has been brutal so far this season. But the one thing that's nice, this Washington secondary, second most passing touchdowns surrendered this season. That's pretty good. 12, I believe was the number. Cool. Yeah, 12. Found it. How are we feeling about Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay coming off of a dud beyond a dud beyond a dud against the Jets?
This sucks. The salary's too high. The expected fantasy points aren't there. The weapons aren't very good on the outside. Aaron Jones is underperforming. A.J. Dillon is running almost as many routes as Aaron Jones. He's out targeting Aaron Jones. So apparently even this backfield is in flux. And that really matters because that Aaron Rodgers' best options in the passing game remain in that backfield. This is a bad situation, man. I don't see any rushing upside at his advanced age at all. his expected fantasy points outside the top 13 quarterbacks on this slate. His fantasy points above or below expectation, not even within the top 12 quarterbacks. He's scoring 1.3 below expectation right now. He's playing Washington. That's the real out, right? 3.2% ownership. Nobody wants to play him. Nothing looks good. He's a 2-time MVP who basically no one's going to play. That's the rub there. It could absolutely work this week.
I'll play a little Romeo Dobbs. As much as I want to play my boy Alan Lazard, shout out my alma mater, Iowa State. No thanks at 6,100. I pass. Romeo Dobbs, that'll kind of be the one guy from there. Sad that this running game, I think Aaron Jones is very, very talented. I think A.J. Dillon's very, very talented. You put them on different teams, they could be workhorse backs, but that is not the case when they are together there. Huge bummer. We continue on to the Washington side, where it is Taylor Heineke season, which might mean that it could be Terry McLaurin season once again. That was by far the number one target for Taylor Heineke last season. You did not have Jahan Dotson, who's a very talented wide receiver. Sounds like he's trending towards playing this week. He returned to practice, limited participant on Wednesday. We'll have more information come Friday, but how do you feel about Taylor Heineke? Because I don't think I want to roster him, even if there is a tiny bit of rushing upside, but I definitely might get behind some below-owned Terry McLaurin.
This feels like if you're doing the lineup review show on Monday that you might end up like, oh yeah, this team with this quarterback does have a little bit of ceiling. No, it doesn't look good on paper. Yes, the rushing upside is there, but ultimately what I'm praying for is exactly what you said. This narrative street that we're kind of walking down with Terry McLaurin being highly involved once again, because that's what it was like when we saw these players play on the field together before. McLaurin is still a very good football player. I'm not going to sit here and say he's quote unquote due. I do like the fact that he's sub 2% ownership right now. That's our projection for him at the moment. So not much of the field is willing to actually go down that narrative street and play him. That actually makes me more likely to do it. So I will go there. I'm not really a fan of Robinson or McKissick or Gibson. This is a three-headed monster, a dreaded three-headed monster. So really it's down to the passing game. I do think in large field tournaments, if you say Aaron Rodgers has a ceiling game, then you can use the secondary options, Samuel, Dotson, as run backs, but it's not hyper appealing.
Somebody saying Aaron Rodgers, he has not been 6K since week 12 of 2019. He was also 3 years younger and had Devontae Adams to throw the ball to.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And I also see in chat too, we're talking about players who are quote unquote due. I don't think that's really what we mean. I think we're talking about quarterbacks with the talent and usage profile to outscore what they have been scoring. And then we see something in the matchups where they can turn things around. Because really, ultimately, that's what DFS is about, right? It's finding the trends before they happen and riding them on their way up. You don't usually win by just point chasing what's already occurred.
All right. Well, we got 2 games to go. We're going to make time, 7 minutes left in our program here. Because again, I loftied the crap out of this. Very proud of myself. Hit the like button for this marathon show. Matt Savoca doing phenomenal work for all of you guys. We go to Tom Brady, about to be the number 1 bachelor in America, Tom Brady, going up against a Carolina defense that I think is decent enough, but you still get a cheap Chris Godwin. You still get a cheap Mike Evans. You still know that they're going to be out there throwing the ball all over the field. Leonard Fournette is stackable, considering we've now had 6+ targets for him in 4 straight weeks. This is an offense that just makes sense. You double stack Brady, you move on with your life. How are you feeling about them as a contrarian? Yes, finally, a contrarian option, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
They're going to crush Carolina this week. I got this
10.5 point favorites. That seems like a good bet.
I got this wrong. I thought they were going to crush Pittsburgh last week, but I do think this team comes out and starts to look like the team that we expect them to. And with all this turmoil, all the personal drama that we've gotten, all the flying without the team, you know what? Their division is so bad that at 3-3 and a plus 18-point differential, way underperforming their own expectations. They're the 3 seed. They're just fine. They're in the driver's seat to exactly where they want to be, which is playing in February meaningful games. And their offense is getting healthier. Fournette is getting the job done. I even think Rachaad White is looking like a serviceable backup to the point where that backfield looks set up for success. Hopefully everyone stays healthy. Same thing with the wide receiver core, right? No one above 10% ownership right now. Happy to play Godwin at his 6.3K price tag. And Evans just isn't too expensive at 6.9K. Gage Otten, I'll probably dabble with only in the milli maker of things like that. But Evans, Godwin, and Brady, and you can include Fournette in that. They look like fantastic stacking options.
Yeah, Cade Otton is going to make a lot of sense. 2,700. He's going to be my pivot off of this Dulcich madness that's going on now. And I like Greg Dulcich. He made a lot of sense as a late best ball pick for the what is it? The revamp over on Underdog, like whatever it was, the second iteration.
Resurrection, yeah.
The resurrection. Thank you. I couldn't think of the resurrection of the Christ at the right time there. I apologize. But there you go. It's not Greg Dulcich, even though he has long hair like Jesus. But we've got a number of different ways to go at tight end, and I think he is my favorite punt for sure at the bottom end. Maybe just because it worked out one time. It's more to do with just Tom Brady's going to throw the ball around a lot, even when they're up in that football game.
Play, right?
That is assuming Brate doesn't play. I think everybody's kind of assuming he's not going to play. I don't know. He got carted off the field. Did you watch that game?
It was scary. It was scary, and also the footage, the aerial footage of Brady warming up did not do anything but add to the current narrative.
Okay. Well, let's finish out with Carolina, where it is it's not DJ Moore season. We know that. Christian McCaffrey's on the trading block. That's fascinating. I can't think of anything that sounds less fun than stacking up Philip Walker with anybody this week.
And yet we might do it because DFS fundamentals tell us that if Godwin and Evans and Brady are going off or Fournette are going off, that a run back option, especially.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, a run back's fine. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's all we're talking about here. Okay. We're not going to the top stacks tool and starting to recommend Walker more stacks because Robbie Anderson is out of town. No one looks particularly great. I will say, I still think that 35-point Christian McCaffrey game is coming. The expected fantasy points are still top 5 in the NFL. They're not like 25 expected fantasy points like the old Christian McCaffrey role, but we're still talking about 18 expected DraftKings fantasy points per game, and he's outperforming those expectations right now.
You know, he's going to look really good in a Buffalo Bills uniform.
His value is going to plummet, and I will not play him at all if that's the case. He'll be having the time of his life winning football games, though.
Okay. I will play him in a Buffalo Bills offense. I don't know what you're smoking, but yeah, Isaiah McKenzie writing the words. Yeah, it's fine. I tried. Did I really just Eleanor Rigsby that?
You did.
That's kind of impressive. It was off the cuff. Last game, it's just, come on. Jets, Broncos, 38.5 point implied total here. Not implied. That's an actual total, Eric. Stop saying implied. How in God's green earth do you play anything that isn't a defense from either one of these teams?
Breece Hall is good.
Oh, Breece Hall is very good at football.
If you think Dameon Pierce is good, then you have to have the sample size to say Breece Hall is good.
Iowa State sold.
Like the usage profile is decent, even though Carter's not hurt. I absolutely agree with the 6,200 salary. It's not too much, and he's not that highly owned. Breece Hall's good. Corey Davis is leading this receiving core in receiving. Did not expect that either. Those are the two I'm really going for. If you want to play Garrett Wilson at sub 5% ownership, that's absolutely fine as well.
Cortland Sutton has 10% ownership. I will eat my own hand if he's actually 10%.
No way. I actually think he's a decent contrarian option. There is no way he's that popular.
We'll see. Well, again, he's 6,200, so that price has come down. We've seen some massive target share for him. He's had double-digit targets in 3 of 6 weeks, but that's still just asking for pain. I get that feeling. Greg Dulcich is actually the main talking point from this game. He's 2,500. Everybody saw him score a touchdown in prime time. Let me tell you, Mo Alley Cox scored 2 touchdowns on a random whatever week it was that he had his double touchdowns, and nobody played him the next week because it wasn't a primetime game. I have a strong opinion that if Greg Dulcich has that touchdown catch on a random Sunday, that he is not this popular. I get he's 2,500, and if it works in a cash build, so be it. I doubt that I would probably play him in cash. I'm not going to play cash this week more than likely, but oh lordy, what do you do when you have this popular of a play on this bad of an offense at 2,500 at tight end?
You just fade him. I mean, if you want to play him in cash, fine, like you're kind of talking about, but in tournaments, it's kind of a mess for me. Look, I don't say don't play this player at all, but Greg Dulcich, we have no idea what we're really expecting here. We could have the 5th or 6th option on an offense that doesn't score points. I get that he's 2,500, but honestly, all he was doing was the Lord's work, which is scoring a tight end touchdown.
Okay,
on
Eric.
A showdown slate. That's all he was doing. No. He was just fulfilling showdown tight end obligations, not actually playing good football. We're not giving him credit. We're giving the showdown football gods all the credit. No, actually, Dulcich played a hybrid receiver role in college. Like he's a fine player. This isn't a fine offense. This offense is not okay. Melvin Gordon in the locker room after that game did not seem okay. This receiving core is not okay. Russell Wilson might be a sociopath. Things could go well, but the Jets defense actually might be okay. They're 8th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. Sauce Gardner is playing well. Like this team could be good soon. There was an anecdote, it made the rounds here in the New York media, where apparently the rookies were caught on the sideline in that blowout win against Miami, where they all looked at each other, Wilson, Hall, and the defenders on the other side, and were just looked at each other and they're like, are we good? I think they might be good.
They might be good. I love Breece Hall more than I love just about anything besides my wife and my dog. But guys, that is the NFL matchups show. Should be able to say what the show is. The Maths Up show. Yes, Matt Savoca, phenomenal work. Man, we made it. We got through over 100 minutes of it. I know Tyler Zander can't wait to order some Wendy's right about now. Is it a Wendy's day? I feel like it's a Wendy's day for you.
Man, I got Wendy's another Wednesday. Show right after this.
Oh, you do? That's a bummer. Oh, no. All right. Well, I guess I better get us out of here. If you guys didn't know, number of different things you guys can tune into. Don't do that. Tune into all of the great stuff that we have coming up here. Another No House Advantage, Pete McCarthy and Jeff Ulrich coming up. What is that? That's at noon. That's for sure. NHL strategy show. That's what's coming up next. Josh Harris and Michael Clifford here starting in 12 minutes. Tune into that. Big NHL slate. So excited for that. NBA deeper dive. That's going to be my boy Rinpack alongside Ship My Money Share. Looking forward to that one too. I will be on NBA Live Before Lock. I'll be the analyst alongside my buddy Greg Ehrenberg, and NFL Showdown Live Before Lock. Your boy Lofty back in the house with Neil Orfield, Matt Savoca. Matt, any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Just thanks so much for hanging out, guys. If you want any late breaking news for the Showdown slate, we will be back breaking it all down. And of course, if you want help with your fantasy football team, we saw Lepre hanging out in chat. The Stokastic Fantasy Football channel is the place to be. We got live shows pretty much every day. VODs to help you with waivers, start sits. You know the drill. So much going on. What a great time of year for sports.
Beautiful. It's definitely beautiful. Hit that like button, please, as you guys get out the door. If you're listening to us on the podcast, you don't have to do a damn thing. Lucky you. He's Matt Savoca. He's awesome. He went to NYU. I'm Eric Lindquist. I went to Iowa State. We'll see you guys later. Have a good one.